I'm Alex Randall Kittredge. I write the ARC Strategy newsletter here on Substack, and I'm here with John Bruton.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you. I'm just posting a link out to everyone. Let them know we're here.
And
That's all
the
right.
topic of today's Substack Live, briefly, is unpacking the Great Resignation. So everyone's maybe familiar with that from 2021. John and I have a hypothesis that some of the labor disruptions we're seeing nowadays are a result of that potentially.
Yeah.
So, in 2021, for those who might have forgotten, about 3.9 million Americans per month quit their jobs, which was the highest average on record since they began keeping that metric in 2000. Monthly quits hit an all-time high of about 4.5 million in November of 2021, and quits made up roughly 69% of all job separations that year. That was pretty high. The quits rate rose from about 1.6% in April 2020, so the depths of the pandemic, to about 3% in November 2021. And it just, folks were quitting their jobs left and right all over the place.
Yes, they were.
Did you experience that at your company, John? Did you have a lot of folks that resigned?
Well, no. So during, now we were not in one of the major urban hubs. So it was that also in B2B space and whatnot. And so my experience actually, like COVID and the kind of into there was working so hard to just make sure everyone still had a job. And we were like a 75 person company. Actually, we were a 62 person company at that point in time. And so yeah, it was like definitely like a microcosm. However, I have a lot of friends who absolutely were experiencing that and did did resign and started to do new pursue new avenues and new outlets. I think part of it too, Alex, was if you go back to like 08, 09 and the financial crisis and everything that happened there's kind of this like I feel like there are a lot of places along the way where people talk about like a lost generation, but I feel like there were a lot of people who were coming out of college at that point in time and then did not immediately move into the jobs that were along their career path. And so over the following 10 years, you ended up with a lot of people who were underemployed. I think the Great Resignation has a sincere and deep connection to underemployment, where people were doing jobs that were not in, that they had just taken because they needed a means of making a living, which is, of course, that's I think that's how many of us find the thing we're great at, is we just do the thing we can get, and then we find something we're really good at. The act of being good at something makes us happy about it. However, maybe not. And I think the Great Resignation was an indicator of that. And
well, I think too, you're right about that. I think there's some statistics about how your first job out of college or your first job, sets you up on the pay scale for sort of for the rest of your career. So, depending on where you enter that ladder system or whatnot, that can determine your pay like 10 years later. And I mentor a lot of folks, not as much these days, but back a few years ago, folks that graduated college in 2020 during the pandemic. And, if you think about finishing your college career, your commencement being on Zoom, all that, they just wanted to go out and live life. I think, no one wants to go sit behind a desk or go to work when you spent the last 1.5 year cooped up at home.
Yeah. I think it was it was a transformational period on I think on many levels. I also, I guess I wonder sometimes too, relative to the pandemic, like people had a lot of time alone and to think. I think that was very difficult. I know it was for me. I spent like 6 months of the pandemic alone in my condominium, and I'm working, but
Yeah.
by myself, like really like not seeing anyone. Going to the grocery store, but even that was like a task, you know. And I was living alone, and uh, I think a lot of soul searching happens, and I think people think, well, what do I really want to do, and what do I, what comes next? I think another part of the story with the Great Resignation, and I think what people are doing now, um, as layoffs mount, and as we look at AI, and we think I'm meeting a lot of people through the work I'm doing here in Substack
Yeah.
who are saying, "Hey, I got laid off," or they're saying, I resigned, and I don't think like I don't think the next corporate job's coming. I'm not
Yeah.
I or even if I get offered one, I'm not gonna look at that as being super reliable.
Right.
And so I think people are looking at this also what happened over this period. If we go back to 08, 09 to now, there is this technology stack that has built over
Mhm.
time. And you have the cost of data storage basically went to nothing. You have video conferencing.
Yeah.
I remember in like 2009, 10 in Chicago, like you would go to like a Regis office center or a law firm or something or some big corporate location, and you would have like these Cisco video conferencing rooms,
Well, do you
and
remember when you
they
used to
were
FedEx documents overnight so
yeah,
they could get a
yeah,
signature? I mean,
yeah,
this
exactly.
we're really
Yeah,
different these days.
yeah, and so I think, and so companies just spend like tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands, to just get the video conferencing. Now you have a Gmail account that's free. Then you get the Google Meet, and you get Zoom pretty cheaply. Substack Live, it's all built in. We have all these cameras on our computers, and so I think people are looking and saying, "Huh, I can build a career, or I can build a small business. Can I find a way to make employment for myself online, given this growing stack and wave of technology, this tech stack that is kind of built to assist all of us, that all the great VCs in the world, like Chris Topman, hi Chris, have and all these great startups have helped to kind of create. I think that's the opportunity of the current moment,
Right.
but I think I think the anxiety is very real when it comes to jobs and some of the numbers we've seen recently, and I think these trends have been building for quite some time.
Yeah, and I think too, it's important to note, like 2021, the Great Resignation, these
Hmm.
weren't folks necessarily leaving the workforce. They weren't
Hmm.
retiring. It
Yeah,
was more folks changing industries, changing sectors. Maybe
absolutely.
you worked behind a desk before. You
Hmm.
sat the pandemic in your bedroom making slide presentations, guilty,
Yes.
and you you
Yeah.
decided you wanted to go outside and touch some grass.
Right. Exactly. I think so. And I think you wanted maybe a more human experience. Uh I think potentially, we could be looking out a year from now, 2 years from now. And I think everything that's happening with AI is very exciting. And there are a lot of ways in which it's improving our lives and experiences. However, I think there are also uh I think I think AI and deep fakes and all the stuff we're seeing now too makes us really yearn for more in-person experience, and more person-to-person experience.
Yeah.
I love that about lives here on Substack. That we're talking right now. We're not AIs. No one's gonna misconstrue that, and we're able to talk about the substance of our articles. That's something I've been saying to a lot of people too, with like as they're writing their articles, and they're sure we're all using AIs in different ways to help us with this and help us with the research and make our images and our charts and things, and that's amazing. Uh, but if you really want to convey your expertise and kind of prove it out that what you're writing about is really something and are maybe passionate about,
Mm.
do lives about your articles. Go do a
Yeah, you have
live
to
about
talk
it.
about
Talk
it.
about it. But I enjoy writing and making all the content, but I really enjoy having this conversation with you right now. Like, I like having this conversation with you more right now than I like just texting or commenting or whatever. Like, this is better than that. And I think I think a lot of us are having that experience.
Well, I like having this conversation with you too, John. But,
Yeah, buddy.
I think it's funny too, like, we were on a call for something else last night, and we
Yeah,
got into our Substack live mode almost. We were, like, talking about
yeah,
ideas. We're like, "Oh, I think we should save this for tomorrow," like,
yeah,
we always get on the Substack live and think about,
yeah,
talk about ideas, what we're thinking about. I
yeah.
think one thing I saw today, I don't know if you can speak to this, but we talked about the Great
Mhm.
Resignation a little bit.
Sure.
Now we're talking about what that means today. I
Mhm,
saw a recruiter on LinkedIn today talk about how these roles that he's filling, and he's a chief of staff recruiter, he's
mhm.
now seeing one person come in and replace 8 people in a
Yeah,
corporation. And
sure.
it's because of the technology, it's because of
Yes.
folks like us who are on Substack who are,
Yep,
shipping things at lightning speed now,
yep.
that you can, if you're going into a mainline organization that still works at a pre-AI speed, one
Mhm.
person can now do the work of 8 people.
Sure. Yeah, so yeah, I have an immediate experience about that relative to my work that I can speak to. So yes, happening. And look, I mean, Goldman Sachs came out a number of months ago and said that in their in on their deal teams that work on roadshows and IPOs for companies, that a team that used to constitute 11 people or 12 people now AI is going to do the vast majority of that work, but then they still need the expert to handle the last mile, all the little details,
Mm.
the legal interface with legal, all the stuff that kind of gets the company to IPO. So that's Goldman Sachs doing IPOs for huge companies, and they're seeing that. But last weekend, I have a consulting client, and I was working on an activity based costing, time driven activity based costing exercise for this client, and putting materials together for this, and for a bunch of interviewing that I'll do of um, the client's employees, and to perform this project and do this work. I had some old Excel sheets and things that I had that used in the past in these exercises. I went into Claude. I have Opus 4.6. I'm spending like 200 a month on that right now. But I talked to it, fed it the old documents, and said, "Look, I want to update these, and how can we improve them?" Spent about 40 minutes in a conversation with Claude about these documents. There are many documents for this kind of a
Yeah.
thing. Then Claude took about 20 minutes and generated all new documents for me, better Excel sheets than I've ever made. All
Wow.
the equations built in, everything perfect. I mean, I checked everything, all the math, all of it. I mean, literally hundreds of equations, probably thousands of cells worth of equations and things built into these, built out. That was a moment where I realized that the company that I was running during the pandemic was an industrial distribution company. Their entire department's worth of people, sourcing analysts, inventory analysts, all kinds of folks, where you could have reduced a department to a manager who then oversees a series of agents,
Mm.
or computers running plot, running Opus 4.6. And I thought, wow, I had thought that I would be able to that if I could go back in time, I would be able to do that. But that experience last weekend showed me, oh, that's what can happen. And so from an operator standpoint, that's wow, that's amazing. From a human standpoint, that's scary.
Mm.
Um, but it's very challenging, because with the jobs, we think about how it's scary about layoffs and people lose the jobs. But then the thing is, if you're running a company and your competition starts doing that, and
Yeah.
that enables them to offer a lower price on the services, most companies out there are competing on price, and that enables them to lower their price on the services, then like you have to do that to compete. And so it's this machine and this momentum that grows. And so I think as individuals, I mean, much of what I've done in my career, Alex, it's completely obsolete now.
Well,
I'm much less valuable than I used to be, and so you have to think about, how can I use this to do something for myself?
Well, that's a great point. We talked about this on
Mhm.
one of our first live streams, and I
Yeah,
talked about how the computer can do all the analytic work for you. The
yeah,
work now is the more human work. It's exactly what we're doing now. It's talking to people, to each other, whether it's in person or over the screen. And,
Absolutely.
you mentioned, I think, the diminishing marginal returns on
Mhm.
Excel as a skill. And when I
Yeah,
heard you talk about
yeah,
Claude just now, that's
yeah.
exactly what you're
It's the
talking
same
about.
thing.
Claude can do Excel now. Like, you don't need to know how to do Excel
Right. Claude can do
as a human.
Excel. Claude can do PowerPoint. Gamma can do PowerPoint. I filled out a survey for another friend of ours on Substack for a post they're doing about AI and tools people use for AI, and like the number of tools and like all these categories I didn't even know. Like I use Gamma for like presentations and client work and things like this. My wife had a board meeting for her company this past week, all of beautiful executive reports that would have taken 10 hours to put together, 5 years ago. She put it all together in like an hour. Like, I mean, half hour, maybe. I mean, like, it's the opportunity is incredible, but that doesn't mean that the anxiety and the obsolescence isn't real. Alex, I'm 100x less valuable today than I
Mm.
was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, give relative to the technical skill set I had in computers. Now
Well, I
I've
think you raised a good point,
yeah,
in terms of how the corporate job is going away. It's becoming
yes,
obsolete. And if you look
yep,
at the data over the last 3 years,
mhm,
it showed that actually the white collar corporate jobs, what we consider corporate jobs, they're down 2.9% from
mhm,
2023 to 2026.
yep,
Other jobs are up. And I guess that gets us to the payroll numbers. We
yeah,
had those revisions to the payroll, we had it
yeah,
revised
we
downward.
sure did.
You know, employment growth basically stopped in 2025.
Mhm,
The entire U.S. economy added about 168,000 jobs in the whole of 2025,
mhm,
which comes out to about 49,000 new jobs per month on average.
yeah,
And if you actually take out the healthcare jobs, because healthcare is the majority of the new jobs driving our economy,
mhm,
all the other jobs were basically negative. So,
yep,
I think to your point, the corporate job isn't coming back. If you lose your corporate job, you know, there's a very good chance you're not going to find another one, at least not quickly. And what does that leave us with? Well, I always talk about the portfolio career, and
yeah,
that's a topic we broach into sometimes.
sure,
You no longer have one single source of income or
no,
one single stable W-2 job. It
right,
almost forces everyone to be an entrepreneur of the self. And
yes,
in that way, to your point, if everyone's an entrepreneur, well,
mhm,
we both have access to Claude, we
mhm,
both have access to Grok, we both have
yep,
access to Substack.
yep,
It's almost like, I don't want to say the hustleization, but you know, folks, the opportunity nowadays is so incredible if you're willing to put the work in.
mhm, absolutely, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's interesting. I think I'm very curious to understand how many, like, in 5 years, how many 1, 2-person businesses doing 80,000 to $200,000 a year are built in the United States. Like, I think that in a certain sense, we've been teaching entrepreneurship. Shark Tank took off. Obviously the cult of Silicon Valley and these mammoth, unicorns and things that we've watched grow over this time. There's a real culture and an excitement around founders and startups and all of that, and that's great. And around entrepreneurship, uh, but I think now it's getting to a point where just very practically, uh, maybe the skill that we all need to develop more than anything else is the skill to build a business. Is
Hmm.
how do you build a business 101? How do you do that? How do
You
you
subscribe to Operating by John Bruton.
yeah, that
That's how you
that
do it.
that's you. Yeah. But no, but seriously, like in doing my work, that is a conclusion that I've reached where I'm like, "Oh, it's because it's," and in talking to people a lot for these weeks here, what I'm also realizing in watching the social media landscape and whatnot is that 2 years ago when I started building online, it was about growing followers and how do I grow a following and how do I
Hmm.
do this. I think it's much less today about like growing a lot of followers and going viral or something. I think it's about, no, I just need to build this because I'm going to practically need to be able to communicate out to the world that I'm open for work and available, and like I don't think the open for work sign on the LinkedIn's working so well
No,
right about now.
no.
So,
Well,
you know,
I always am one to self promote. I actually hate it, but
yeah.
I worked on publishing a book titled "How
Hmm.
Your Side Hustles Will Save You: Creating a
Hmm.
Durable Career That Transcends the Corporate Ladder." And it's
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
You are forced to or enabled to have these side hustles now that could one day become your main hustle. It could be your main source of income. Maybe
Absolutely.
today you're doing some volunteering or you're doing some extracurricular, you know, pro bono work that
Hmm.
help nonprofit, but tomorrow maybe you're running the nonprofit and you're being paid for that. I think
Hmm.
the line between work and non-work is much more fluid nowadays.
Yeah.
And you know there's less of this idea of commuting into an office, although some
Mhm.
organizations are going back to that. They're still
Oh, sure. Yeah.
pretending that we need to do that, I guess. But
Mm.
it's a very different world when you can do almost everything that you used to do in the office, apart from meet with someone in person from
Yes.
your desk at home.
Sure. Sure. Oh, absolutely. And I think it just gets back to, uh, I mean, not to be too off topic, but I think we talk a lot about AI right now, and that's the thing that everyone's like freaking out about and so excited about, and it's amazing. I mean, it's incredible we can do with these tools, but like, I mean, if you go back over the last 30 years and you look at the succession of technological innovations that have taken place, the video thing that I pointed out, like uh, the fact that the video and our ability to do this today is ostensibly free is just
Mm.
wild. Like it is that was not the case 10 years ago or 15 years ago. I'm getting old,
And it was
but
so bad.
but
I mean, I remember
it
being on a
is,
video
yeah,
call and the
yeah,
internet wasn't
the
fast
quality
enough.
was
You
terrible.
It was
Yeah.
grainy,
Yeah,
pixelated.
yeah. Or the fact that now you get a Gmail account and, I mean, when I was in college and when like you had to get your Microsoft Office subscription, your education edition, and
Mm.
you at home and your family, you had the family Microsoft Office, and you need to pay for all this stuff. You get a Gmail and you have, I mean, it's every bit as good as what the Microsoft Office product was. And so I think, all of these things in succession, cost of data storage, everything that developed out of the app economy from the iPhone and all the tools and what Calendly does to enable us to schedule meetings. I mean, not all of these things are free, but the cost is nominal. It's so.
I'm just thinking out loud here, but to
Mhm.
the point of the Great Resignation and its
Yeah.
aftershock, we're having not a great resignation nowadays. We're having the great, layoff apocalypse, if you want to call it that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
looking back to the Great Resignation, do you
Mhm.
think if these tools and AI were out when the Great Resignation happened, that people would have even gone back to their jobs?
That I mean, that's interesting. Uh, I really don't know. I don't know if people would have or not. Um, a challenge with the Great Resignation too is that you don't know what happened to everyone afterwards by the
Mm.
numbers. You don't know how many people did go back. You don't know how many the some of the things that economists are most excited about when it comes to AI is, especially like at the Federal Reserve, like with these tools, what can we have a more granular and accurate understanding of what's actually going on inside of companies and inside of the economy, and will that help us to track what happens to job seekers and all of this over time in a more accurate way? Because a lot of these numbers that we like, well, it came from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, so it must be right. Well, we just modified a lot of those numbers because and that was all the modifications that happened were really about definitions of things being redefined to hopefully become more accurate. But I mean, these modifications happen every year. The numbers get announced, and then quarters later, it's like, oh no, actually, we're now we're usually it's we're pushing these numbers down. And so it is, and that is just a function of inaccuracy of data collection. And kind of the visibility we have or don't into some of these things.
No, I mean 100%. I think in 2024, the BLS revised the employment numbers down by about 1 million at the end,
Mhm.
and
Sure.
this year it was close to 900,000. So,
Yeah.
you know, you redo the math and look at it over the course of the year. I think we talked
Mhm.
about this a little bit earlier, but
Right.
that's almost like no jobs being added to the economy outside of
Yeah.
healthcare or
Yeah.
tourism,
Right.
hospitality. We're not talking about the quote unquote good jobs that used to exist.
Sure.
Those jobs are largely disappearing. And
Sure.
for folks that have been laid off or are trying to find their next role, I
Mhm.
think you're right where you're meant to be, but also being here on Substack is incredibly smart. Like being
Mhm.
on the platform where
Absolutely.
you can build an audience, become a I don't want to say creator because I feel like it has negative connotations. Do you agree or no?
I love the word.
You love the word?
I love the word. I love I
Oh.
love I love cringe, Alex. I no,
I was
no,
reading I
no.
was reading an M&A report this week from a
Yeah.
from an investment bank
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
content creator economy, and
Sure.
there was a
Yeah. Yeah.
slide. It was a pyramid, and it defined what is a content creator. And I thought,
Yeah.
the poor junior banker who is there making this slide right now,
Yeah.
they are probably dying that
Yeah.
they are making a slide on what is a
Yeah.
creator.
Yeah. I felt decided I liked it more, or I took it more seriously a while ago when Goldman Sachs did a bunch of research on it and like the creator economy and where they see it going and M&A activity in the sector and whatnot. And I was like, oh, okay, well, okay. And now like I feel better about it. But no, I no, but I definitely hear you. Um I definitely hear you about that. But yeah. So I will also say this too. I think it's very important to look at the current job situation with a great amount of empathy and feeling for the understandable anxiety it creates for all of us in the immediate moment. Um, and I think it's important to remember that historically, we talked about this last week.
Right.
Historically, technological revolution that usually is coupled with economic revolution um, is ultimately that creates new sectors, new companies, new jobs, new consumer wants, new demands, and more jobs. These periods where an enormous amount of jobs are destroyed, it's creative destruction, and and so I think we should expect that on the other side of this, X number of years, maybe 3 years, five, something like that,
Mm,
maybe sooner, you will start to see what comes next. And you will start to see where those jobs are and where those opportunities are. And there will be, I believe that there will be new opportunities and new ways to work and new things to be very excited about. However, what is also true historically is that there is usually an entire generation of people
yeah.
who are mid-career like me, yeah, you're not quite mid-career, but are in the midst of their careers
Yeah.
and are harmed by this. And so yeah.
Well, I think
I-
too, I know we have to end shortly, but
Yeah.
it comes down to, what are folks to do? You had the Great
Mhm.
Resignation, you had the Great Stay.
Yeah.
Folks are job hugging nowadays.
Sure. Of course.
The world, we're in this interregnum. The world that we knew before
Mhm.
is not coming back.
No.
So, you know, what comes forward? Do you cut ties with the corporation as you know it and go out on your own, or do you
Mhm.
continue to look for stability? I think,
Mhm.
as someone who's been laid off twice in the
Mhm.
last 5 years, I
Mhm.
can speak from personal experience. I no longer view any job as a stable job. I think,
Sure.
it's certainly
That.
more precarious than at my
Mhm.
grandfather's time, working at one company for
Right.
35 years.
Right.
That world is long gone.
Right, and that's probably very different than what 18-year-old Alex, who got accepted into Columbia and went off to be a freshman at Columbia, thought the outcome would like, what I mean? It's just like
Mm,
these things are very different I think these are unexpected things. And so we become stronger for these things. We
no, of course.
rebound and we learn and we adapt and I think, I think all of that is very positive. Though I will say I talked to quite a few folks and friends in who are still working for large corporates and whatnot. And one of the things I think there's also um, I think an environment like this creates a lot of room for burnout as well, because
Mm,
I think the folks who remain are being asked to do a lot more. And yes, AI is helping to accomplish that and
right.
to do that work. Um, However, they're still being asked to do sometimes the jobs of two, three, four people, if not more. And 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 maybe the AI doesn't magically just make all that happen. Maybe
Yeah.
that's just more work, and maybe that's and then there's also fear inside the companies around what happens if well, if I don't do all this, then I'm definitely going to be laid off. And so I just want to say to everyone out there, I have a lot of empathy for it, and I'm not in that position, um in part because I just haven't, that's just not where my life is taking me right now. And so so I think there will probably be a lot of folks in those situations too, trying to figure out, how do I get out of this and go have some freedom and build something for myself? And
Well, one
thus
way
here we
you
are.
could figure out how to get out of it is to
How?
subscribe to Arc Strategy by
Yes.
my
Yeah.
my Substack, where I write about
Yeah.
the future of work, how to create a durable career
Yes.
in the post AI economy. So every
Absolutely.
week, there's one piece in your inbox that talks about what exactly does it mean to start a Substack newsletter, or you know get a Google Knowledge panel. What is that? Why is that
Yeah.
important? Who
Exactly.
knows? But I think it's the beginnings of a roadmap for folks that
Mhm.
are entirely disillusioned. So I would
Yeah.
encourage everyone on the live to check that out. Also,
Absolutely.
Operating by John Bruton.
Yeah, please come over, say hi, everyone, subscribe. We got a for our founding members. I got a weekly hour-long Zoom I'm doing, talking about all this and trying to help people with real practical, actionable perspective and tools to help them with it. But would just love to see anyone over there. Please say hi. Alex and I will be back, I think each week doing this and talking about jobs and the economy and all the machinations inherent. So yeah, it's
Thanks
great to see
everyone for
everyone.
joining. It's good to see you, John.
Yeah,
Until next week.
376 people. That's crazy.
It's
That's like
really a lot.
that's crazy. That's completely wild. So please, that's like, I think Alex and I are both like, jumping around on the inside. We're excited about that. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks,
Have a great
everyone. Have a
weekend.
great day.
All right, bye guys. Have a happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Bye.